Los Angeles has declared an emergency due to a port crisis that's crushing trade, cutting hours, and shrinking paychecks. Experts warn that more than 9 million jobs nationwide could be affected. And additionally, there is speculation about whether Bank of America made a massive mistake. Despite a worsening economy, stocks are set to soar, and I'll explain why. And today's story actually begins with a headline. Hundreds of dock workers are without work because of Trump's tariffs, creating a major crisis for Los Angeles, expected to impact 9 million jobs nationwide. Even though the U.S. and China agreed to a 90-day cooling off period over the weekend, the tariffs are already having a significant impact on workers.
First off, your reaction, and what could you tell us about the China deal that has tariffs dropping from 145, 125 respectively to 30 and 10?
Mm-hmm. This is an extraordinary first step in the right direction. And thanks to the strength of President Trump, Secretary Bessent and Ambassador Greer were able to cut this initial deal with China. China agreed to reduce their tariffs on the United States by 115%. They also agreed to continue having discussions about opening Chinese markets to American-made products and goods. And they also agreed to continue seriously discussing the grave impact that Chinese-produced fentanyl is having right here in the United States and our people. So this is a great first step for the American public, and Secretary Bessent, Ambassador Greer, and of course President Trump will continue negotiations with China so we can hopefully inevitably get to a fair and comprehensive big trade deal.
And just today, over 235 members of the International Longshore and Warehouse Union sought work but were unable to find it, according to a port liaison. Now, this situation is manifesting as a real loss of jobs and income for union members. Employers, including the union, have stated they do not want to lay off workers, but cutting hours for part-time workers is effectively the same as having no job, as they cannot access unemployment benefits. The crisis is primarily affecting part-time workers now.
As you guys know, my firm 3 weeks back put out some guidance on what the upcoming layoffs are going to be in the shipping and logistics industries, partially as a result of the tariffs and some other economic indicators. So we did call 3 weeks ago for between 15 and 25,000 layoffs at UPS. As you guys saw this week, on the back half of the week, there was a 20,000 employee layoff at UPS. Just wanted to say that if you work for any of these companies, so this company here, this company here, this company here, and especially this company here, there will be more layoffs in the month of May. Our firm is predicting somewhere between 150 and 200,000 layoffs total. Again, this is primarily going to just be in these companies, shipping, logistics, and then of course in Walmart's case, it's a retail giant that depends heavily on the Sino-US previous trade agreements. Again, just throwing that out there. This is just letting you know. So if you work for one of these companies, you can plan accordingly. That will probably be the progression.
So these are our local rows. This is all stuff that's come off the ship that's going out on local semi-drivers to go, to warehouses. All the goods we buy for around here and shit. For years, these have been packed full. All week, there's always ships backfilling. This is the first time I've seen a section completely wide open in years. Not to mention these other ones are really sparse. Usually they're full. They're full with cans 4 high in each of the 6 cells in each block. But as you can see, most of them are half full. And then this row over here is for store brand cargo, like Target, Walmart, Home Depot. They pay extra to have their stuff that comes off the ship sorted separately so they can free flow it out. As you can see, there's hardly anything. Not a great sign.
But there is fear it will soon impact full-time workers. Now, if trade levels do not return to the pre-trade war levels, jobs will be lost and hours will be cut, an inevitable outcome of reduced global demand for labor. This crisis will significantly impact cities like Los Angeles and spread across the nation. Tariffs are harming American workers, with officials from North America's busiest container port stating that 136,000 local jobs are directly tied to Southern California ports, and 1.4 million jobs are connected to the Los Angeles and Long Beach region. In Long Beach, the mayor noted that the ports represent 1 in 5 jobs in the city.
Now to the latest on the tariffs. President Trump is suggesting he might be open to easing tariffs on China ahead of a key round of trade talks. On Truth Social, the president posted an 80% tariff on China, up to Scott B. Now he's referring to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who will lead the trade talks with China this weekend. The current tariff on China is 145%.
Some dock workers say tariffs have created what they're calling the worst week in years at the ports of LA and Long Beach. With hundreds of workers unable to get work here today, the rippling effects are hidden, and they're hitting hard.
Well, Michael, this is supposed to be the start of busy season here at the port, but take a look. It's pretty slow right now. Half of the ships that should be here from China, nowhere to be found. Fewer ships mean fewer jobs, fewer trucks as well, fewer of those jobs as well, and union leaders fear it could get worse.
Just today, we had somewhat north of 235 members who sought work but were not able to get it.
235 workers, mostly part-timers, out of work on the docks of LA and Long Beach ports alone today. The clearest sign, union leaders say Trump's tariffs are beginning to hurt real Americans.
It's beginning to manifest itself as a real loss of jobs and income for our members.
These tariffs are harming our American people.
Congressional Representatives Nanette Barragan and Robert Garcia, whose districts include both ports, warned that President Trump's 145% tariff on China goods, which make up a good amount of containers coming into the ports, are not already resulting in job losses, but soon bare shelves.
We are at the beginning of a serious supply chain crisis that Donald Trump right now has the ability to end.
We'd like to see China opened up so we can compete in China.
President Trump, talking to reporters ahead of talks with China this weekend, said that is his long game with China. But here's his response when he was asked about workers' fears now at the port.
But when you say it's slowed down, that's a good thing, not a bad thing.
At this point, it looks like it's going to get worse before it gets better.
As paychecks shrink, workers' spending will decrease, leading to rising delinquencies that will spread rapidly across the country. This will impact local businesses such as grocery stores and small businesses in Long Beach. Sonia, a food truck owner near the ports, reported her business is down 30 to 40%.
DeConstanza says disappointment is beginning to spread with union workers.
And now it's nothing.
For workers serving those port workers like Sonia Madrano's food truck, business has already dried up. Her chairs empty.
Like 30% or 40% down.
The Port of LA says about 136,000 local jobs are directly tied to the ports, 1.4 million jobs in LA and Long Beach alone. For Long Beach, the port represents 1 out of 5 jobs in the city, and the mayor says they're already beginning to feel it.
This is going to impact folks like grocery stores and small businesses here in our community of Long Beach.
DeConstanza says 9 million jobs across the country are indirectly tied to the ports and the supply line.
We may feel the pain and the uncertainty here first, but it's going to spread from here all across the country.
Representative Barragan as well as Garcia said, right now they're signed on with a bunch of state AGs in a lawsuit against the president. He's signed an emergency order in order to implement these tariffs. They're hoping that might budge. But either way, if there's a deal with China or something done on the legal front, it still could take up to 1 month before things get back to normal here at the ports. That's if any of those things are done.
Many people lack the financial resources to weather this storm as they are already living paycheck to paycheck. The decline in trade is hitting them now, and every week it continues, threatens to push the U.S. economy into a recession. Union leaders stated that the port directly and indirectly affects 9 million jobs nationwide tied to the supply chain. Los Angeles may be the epicenter of this crisis, with the pain and uncertainty spreading across the country. Low-income workers in particular cannot afford the loss of income as they face a growing gap between earnings and costs. Low-income households spend a larger portion of their budgets on necessities compared to wealthier ones. With hours being cut and income shrinking, these workers have no ability to weather the storm, especially as the prices of necessities rise.
So it's been more than a month, if you can believe it, since Donald Trump announced his sweeping and pretty ridiculous tariffs.
And the Consumer Price Index shows prices rose 0.2% in April, up slightly from March, but lower than analyst expectations. And prices are up 2.3% compared to a year ago.
But it really belies what we expect the long-term impacts of the tariffs to be. I think ultimately this is a short-term view of a few weeks after the tariffs were announced. It may take a few months until some of this starts to work its way through the system and actually reach the consumer.
The Treasury Secretary just told lawmakers that a tariff exemption for certain baby items like car seats is under consideration. Will you exempt some products that families rely on?
I don't know. I'll think about it. I don't know. I really don't. I want to make it nice and simple. I'm not looking to have so many exemptions that nobody knows what's doing. We have to make it very simple, but I'll take a look at it.
So, okay, again, their quote, the only consideration in Trump's trade negotiations is what is best for the American people. But should those people be able to afford car seats for their babies? Well, Trump doesn't know. He's going to have to think about it.
This dynamic, shrinking paychecks, rising prices, and reduced spending is exactly how recessions begin. However, trading accounts should be thriving. For example, we've seen what happened to my Tesla stock price. And overall, I'm up like 35% when you average dollar cost average each time I bought Tesla when it was down. Those interested in this trade or the next big momentum trade can find more information over on Patreon, linked down below in the description. And the consumer price index compared to average weekly hours for production in non-supervisory employees shows that hours worked are being cut, particularly for part-time port workers while inflation rises. Historical patterns from the late 1980s, late 1990s, and the global financial crisis indicate that rising inflation and shrinking paychecks lead to recessions. Current data from Los Angeles and Long Beach ports suggests the early signs of a potential recession, with hours worked shrinking and paychecks declining. Bank of America's report highlights slowing spending growth across all income groups, a major sign of a recession. And when prices rise and paychecks do not keep pace, people cut spending, affecting discretionary sectors and leading to job losses. Retailers have reported less foot traffic and more selective consumer behavior, a trend validated by Bank of America. Consumers are pulling back on big ticket discretionary services like airline tickets and lodging, while non-discretionary items like food and shelter continue to grow more expensive.
So y'all, I'm at my favorite grocery store and I just want to show y'all the prices on some of this stuff. Hold on. This is really great tomato sauce, like spaghetti sauce, and it's $11.99. Wow. This is the signature select roasted onion and garlic pasta sauce. And it's $2.49, and I think I'm gonna try this one. Parmesan cheese, $8.99. This is $8.99. OMG, when did this cheese become $12? Look at that. $13. I remember when these were like $1.50.
And for part-time hourly workers, reduced hours exacerbate the impact of rising rents, energy prices, and food costs, leading to inevitable cuts in other spending. Bank of America's report found that credit and debit card spending is dipping, particularly among low-income Americans, with an increase in households making only minimum credit card payments, signaling building financial pressures. As the crisis spreads from Los Angeles, delinquency rates on credit cards are expected to rise, especially as average weekly hours decline. And despite these economic challenges, Bank of America's call to sell the rally was incorrect.
Trump speaks and the market's up 4%, and then it makes new highs and the Mag 7 come back. It wouldn't surprise me if that happened, because that's happened like 10 times over the last 3 years. So you have to be careful around these kind of things.
I hear you that there's still a lot of greed in the market among individual investors, though it seems like maybe the professional investors are taking the opportunity to sell rallies.
Positive news from U.S.-China trade talks has shifted market sentiment with a 90-day truce, reducing worst-case scenarios. And Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent indicated the possibility of extending the truce to avoid further tariff increases. Recognizing the trade war's negative impact on the U.S. economy and equity markets, while companies will suffer from economic uncertainty, stocks can rally despite a slowing economy due to market positioning. Fund managers, hedge funds, and algorithmic trading programs are set to buy equities, with corporate buybacks also contributing to market momentum. Goldman Sachs estimates that 75% of corporations are in the open window for buybacks, with momentum trading algorithms projecting to buy $79 billion of global equities, including $37 billion in the U.S. The S&P 500's close above 5745 has triggered buying from these programs, driving the rally despite negative economic data. And volatility control funds, which sell stocks when volatility rises and buy when it falls, are also contributing to the rally as volatility drops. Additionally, bearish sentiment among hedge funds and short sellers is forcing them to cover positions and go long, further fueling the market. Retail investors who bought the dip are benefiting, while professionals who followed Bank of America's advice to fade the rally are missing out. Oil is another commodity poised to outperform, with a potential buy signal at $64 per barrel as short positions unwind. And while Los Angeles faces a crisis affecting small businesses and potentially 9 million jobs, the stock market's rally offers opportunities for investors. The opportunity exists for folks to save money on their Medicare by making a phone call to our partner Chapter for free Medicare help and advice. The number's on the screen. There's additional information in the description, link down below, but just give them a call, 270-467-2426, and ask them, how can I save money on Medicare? Now, I got to ask you guys, what do you think? Will the economy recover quickly enough to avoid a recession, or is the damage already done? Share your thoughts in the comments down below. This is Kevin. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.